Simon, the new clubs have found life back in the Premier League pretty darn tricky, to be quite honest. Burnley went in against Forest last night. Burnley still await their first league win after they were pegged back by Forest. Now, I'm not getting at you here, and this is by no means a dig at you, but your Crystal Palace on promotion in 2004 took 8 games to get your first Premier League win, and you'll remember that well. It was a 2-0 win at home to Fulham in October.
Andrew Johnson scoring.
Andrew Johnson, an early mention of AJ. But your first 7 games, Simon, Palace lost 5, drew 2, beaten by Everton, Chelsea, Borough, Portsmouth and Manchester City. You drew with Norwich and Villa. Was there a spell during that spell you thought, oh God, are we ever going to get this going?
No, not at all. I mean, in those games, we played Norwich first game of the season away, which was disappointing because they'd been promoted with this first game of the season. So you were exactly playing someone you'd played the previous season before. We played Everton, and we should have won that game. We were in all these games, and that's where our goalkeeper Julian Speroni got nicknamed Julian Spilloni because he pushed a goal in the back of the net from Patrick Berger for Portsmouth. We were in all these games, and we were making mistakes that were unnecessary. My biggest issue was with this sort of contrite attitude we appeared to have. We appeared to be a little bit passive and a little bit thankful for being in the Premier League. And I remember doing an interview, not that it matters what I said, about having, a bit like Chris Wilder did, but Chris Wilder has had a position of influence with the players, that I'm not grateful to be in the Premier League. I don't feel that I have any gratitude for being here. I'm here because we're entitled to be here, and I hope our players feel the same way. And I felt for the first 5 or 6 games we were a little bit awestruck or a little bit timid, and a little bit.
The players were. You wouldn't be.
No, I wasn't, and I certainly wasn't in people's boardrooms, who were very delighted to have me in there after I'd received a notification from Richard Scudamore. They wanted to have a meeting with me before I came into the Premier League to advise me about my expected behaviour, which I told them to go forth and multiply on. But
what did they think you were going to do?
They thought I was going to cause mayhem and mirth in equal measure, I suspect. When we got our boots on was against Fulham. I mean, we got relegated in the last game of the season. So, the bottom line is that if you can get a good start or you can get a good end, then you find yourself surviving in the Premier League. But equating it to what's happening now, because I was thinking about this specifically yesterday, about these 3 sides that have gone up, Sheffield, Luton and Burnley, and they're very different in all their different guises, because really and truly, if you look at Sheffield United, Sheffield are playing with a great deal of resolution, but not a great deal of attacking quality, because you expect that, because that's what the very fabric of that club is. But they've had some of their best players taken away. There's no investment gone into that side. So you're looking at a side that's got no real opportunity besides a coach that's going to dig deep into the psyche of the players and say, we make people battle for every single point. And unfortunately for Sheffield, that means the quality that others have will overcome them. Then you look at Luton, and Luton have spent nothing. With due respect, they didn't expect to be there. They're redirecting some of the money into the stadium, and possibly it might be priced into their thinking that relegation wouldn't be an awful thing. And then you look at Burnley, who are the sort of different one of the pack, because they have spent money. But Vincent Kompany, to me, looks like he's trying to play a brand of football which is exactly the same way he played in the Championship, and I'm not sure that's going to cut it in this league. So he may have to adapt.
So you tell me this is the weakest trio that's come up for some time?
I'm saying this. All 3 have challenges for different reasons. I mean, Swansea came up many years ago and played a brand of football that people said they couldn't play in the Premier League, and they did for several seasons, and they superseded that knowledge. But it looks to me like Kompany, and I think he interviews brilliantly. I think he comes across brilliantly. I think his interview post-game yesterday, very calm, very lucid, not being drawn into the nonsense of criticising people because you haven't got outcomes that you wanted. But I do feel he's going to have to adapt. So Burnley's position is slightly different to Sheffield United and Luton's. And you look at previous years gone past. I mean, Forest started the season last year not being able to get any results, with Cooper looking like he's going to get fired and £150 million of a spend. Fulham a couple of years ago came up, bought everybody that was not nailed down, and then got relegated because they bought the wrong players. I do think that Sheffield and Luton are in for a long, hard season. And I think if Burnley perhaps don't adjust and become a little bit more realistic about the way that they have to play, then they may find themselves in difficult positions.
Do you know what? You make such a good point, Simon, about Vincent Kompany. I've always thought this, but he does interview so well. And post-match last night, you probably saw it at the end, if you saw it, Simon, Sanderberg, there was that handball incident. Penalty not given. And of course, at that late stage in the game, that might well have won Burnley the football match. But how refreshing was it to hear Vincent Kompany speak like this?
I've seen it back multiple times, but I think on all these things with rules changing and stuff, and I think with the VAR and with I think it's a good referee, so he checked it, he made the decision. I don't have that lawyer's passion to go with a fine tooth comb through every single, legislation that there is on handballs and whatnot. The rules are in the Premier League. So I just leave it to the specialist, and I'll move on. My team has to. The only thing we control is us, and there's good signs. We just need to get better again.
Do you know how different is that to what Paul Heckingbottom was saying at the weekend? I love company for that.
Me too. Me too. I think it's an absolutely commendable way to operate. Why he operates that way, I suspect, is because he's a very different character, comes from a very different background. He's a leader in a certain way in terms of the deliverables that he put into Manchester City. He's gone away. He's managed in Belgium for a few years, got himself into a position where he understands a little bit more about management. I'm not giving Heckingbottom a pass because I think his outburst was rather ridiculous. And unnecessary, and I think it pushes back against the sentiments that he and his fellow compatriots in the dugout have created, which is a new culture where referees need to regain control of the game because people like him and his players have created this temperature that's resulted in this situation with referees wanting to be more strident in their actions. I mean, we'll see. I have this cynical side of me that suggests that I'm watching Postecoglou because I'm an admirer of his and thinking, I hope you don't get corrupted by this awful thing called the Premier League bug, which turns you into prima donnas. When you don't get what you want, you suddenly have far too much to say for yourself. It's unnecessary.
I think there's no chance of that, don't you?
I don't know. Company is going into Burnley. There's limited pressure on them. Their fans will have an expectation of wanting to be in the Premier League, but not a demand of it. And so he manages in a different respect. But currently, most things that he says and does are very, very sensible. And it's not about these wonderful, cosmic insights into things. It's about common sense most of the time. And that's the commodity that seems to be lacking so much in our society.
As you said, though, Simon, he comes over as a leader, which I love about company. And he's pragmatic. He looks at the thing time and again. Sure, last night, should we have had a penalty? And at the end of it, it's like, well, we didn't get it. So life goes on.